All right. Welcome to the City Council Conference for Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. We have two items on the agenda today. The first one is a discussion regarding potential charter amendments. And we've got the city attorney here to discuss that with us.
Hi, Catherine Walker with the legal department. As I understand it, this came up at your retreat, and I believe at that time there were three areas that were focused on. One was the stipend for elected officers, changing the beginning date for your terms, and then some changes to the fairly new language of the city auditor. And so I've provided to you language that was proposed in 2022 in regards to the stipend and the swearing in dates, because those were things that we took to the voters along with a lot of other changes. And in the case especially of the stipend, of the term, there were other changes embedded within that ordinance as well. So although it was not successful with the voters, we don't know why or which part of that might have been objectionable. With the stipend, what the Charter Review Commission recommended last time was a range, and council ended up settling on $8,100 for the mayor per year, and then $5,400 per year for council members. Then they called for the appointment of a 5-member compensation committee that would determine every 3 years whether that should be raised. And so that would kind of take it out of the hands of council. And they would base it on the consumer price index, the city's overall budget, and other relevant factors. So that is what was presented to the voters last time. As far as the term language, what was presented to the voters regarding that last time was moving that swear-in date to closer to the date of the election. So I believe we had the first Tuesday after the scheduled runoff election for the offices, so that you wouldn't have some people starting in February, some in April. That would give a uniform date for every office to start. It's the first Tuesday after the runoff election. You'll see in here, and keep in mind this was adopted by the Charter Review Commission, I think in 2021, and then proposed in 2022 by council to the voters. The dates are pretty far off, not so much now, 3 years later, but the reason we did that is because we didn't want to impact the end of any existing terms. So Mayor, you were elected in 2025. You were elected for a full 3-year term from July to July. And so we wouldn't want to impact that in 2028. Similarly with council members, you were elected and seated in July, and we want you to be able to get your full term. So there is a delay to when that would start based on that. So 2028, I think, for even-numbered wards, 2029 for odd-numbered wards, and then 2031, I believe, for the mayor.
Okay. So just for new or current members that get reelected, or
it would
apply, we don't change it so that it's, if there's turnover, then those people get sworn in.
Well, it would begin after the current terms conclude. And because this wouldn't go on, it wouldn't be adopted prior to the February 2026 elections, it would have to start following that.
So even numbered wards 2027.
Even number wards 2028. Or I'm sorry,
2028.
2026
is the upcoming election. So okay.
Yeah.
So after this cycle, 2028.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there a reason we wouldn't do it in 2027 for the odd number wards?
That would affect people who were elected in 2025. They wouldn't be serving their full 3-year term. They'd be shorted a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, so it seems so far out.
Yeah.
These numbers that are in here got here pretty quick. I don't know about you guys, but those years passed quickly. But that's why the delay would be recommended, is we don't want to impact anyone's term that's currently in office.
So mayor in 2028, whoever's elected mayor in 2028, their term, the end of their term would be under the new in 2031.
Yeah,
they
so
wouldn't serve
basically
until July 2031. They'd serve until.
That way, when they sign up to run and get elected, they know what they're signing up for. As far as the auditor language goes, we've added some flexibility in the qualifications. If you see on the last page there, the proposed change, adding proof of having obtained one of the following professional certifications: CPA, which is existing language, certified internal auditor, certified fraud examiner, or other equivalent professional certification. So that gives you some flexibility if you have a really great candidate who maybe doesn't check one of those boxes but has the experience you're looking for, you would have that flexibility.
On the council pay part, would we be able to list the monthly pay instead of the annual pay?
Yes, we can do that, and I do
think
have,
that we make $1,200 a month,
wouldn't that be great?
and or that we're proposing that I make $8,400 a month as mayor. I just don't know if that's what people see on the ballot and they think that's
Yeah.
the monthly pay or something. I don't know.
I
It seems weird.
updated the comparison, and that's what's going around right now, that we did with the Charter Review Commission in 2019, looking at what other cities do, just to give you a range. A couple of cities have had some pretty significant increases in the last couple of years. Edmond doubled the compensation for mayor and council members in 2021. Lawton increased the compensation just effective this past July for their council members and mayor position. Mayor's on one side, council members on the other. So that kind of gives you the range.
$1,666 a month in Lawton for each council member.
20,000 for mayor, it's 20,000 a year. That's 1,666 for council members. On the backside, it's $833. 10,000 a year.
I know that the voters of Moore just voted to increase their council pay to $300 and their mayor pay to $500. So more.
Per month?
Yes. Okay, that's interesting.
So that just gives you kind of an
Councilman
idea.
Dixon.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I do think that was part of the confusion that, a lot of people were looking at the annual that council or mayor would make and were thinking it was monthly. I did hear a few comments.
I mean, other than Oklahoma City, Norman is much larger than all the other cities on this list too. Councilman Grant.
I was just curious, do you know what Tulsa?
No, I didn't. I used the cities we had looked at in 2019. I didn't get a chance to go outside of that, but we can look at that.
I'd be curious how they pay out. And then I also thought it was interesting that Lawton gives the pro tem a little extra as well.
Tulsa's strong.
Tulsa's
Yeah.
strong mayor for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
That'll make a difference. That's gonna skew.
Yeah.
6 figures
Oh,
strong
so
at that
maybe
point.
not
for the mayor, but yeah,
Okay.
But
Well,
with their
let's-
council, whatever their council.
yeah, we can
is.
look at council member pay.
Maybe Broken Arrow too, since they're the fourth largest city. Yeah, that's interesting to see that comparison. I didn't know it was so far out.
Yeah.
But we haven't raised it in Norman since 1981, from what I recall, and it's only been attempted to be raised once since then, and that was 3 years ago. And people are always shocked when they find out that I don't have a six-figure salary, and that council only makes $100 a month. It's always surprising to folks. And then they ask, well, why do it?
Because we love your community.
Because we love Norman. Okay. So those are three primary ones, and then we've had discussions too about charter amendment for TIFs. If it requires that, to require a supermajority vote of council to approve a TIF, or if there should be a automatic public vote on TIFs of some kind of stipulation of threshold or whatever that might be.
Yeah, and you might recall, we ran into the issue of whether or not you can have an election on a TIF outside of the initiative or referendum process. There's some language in the title of statutes dealing with elections that talks about how the election board can only conduct elections that are authorized by state law. And so, and the Local Development Act, the only way it's authorized is through initiative and referendum. There's not any language about general elections. And so that might be something we want to dig into further. But there are other ways, as you said, to address some of those issues without necessarily requiring a vote.
Okay, Councilmember Grant?
Yeah, speaking of other ways, we had talked earlier about getting community buy-in at the start and that we could change our upfront process to get that feedback from citizens. I think maybe it was citizen input and then goes to statutory review committee.
Yes, yeah, we did that with University of North Park. There was a citizens committee. I don't know the makeup of the committee in total. I know that there were local developers on the committee, local retail interests on the committee. And that's really even how that grew to be $54 million. The original ask was smaller. And then that proposal went to the statutory review committee and then on to planning commission and council for a vote.
And there could be a mechanism for whatever projects get funded or requesting TIF funds could go through another citizen process to get the green light. Like, yes, we agree we should do sidewalks and lighting at these following intersections, or no, we don't agree that we should subsidize this particular development or whatever with public infrastructure.
Yeah, you can certainly add in a step at the beginning of the process to get citizen committee feedback on the project itself. Once it's proposed or if council's proposing a project. You could also add in oversight throughout the project's development because similar to how we've done with UNP having an oversight committee. So you could have a committee that weighs in on expenditures or proposed projects, proposed development agreements, things like that to give you more feedback and I think what you said in the beginning to get more buy-in from the community.
And we could also set it, I remember Councilmember Schuler wanted to send it to a vote to kind of as an informal survey. As you mentioned, we couldn't do that before we got through the whole process, but we could get past the statutory review committee and would have the project plan. We could get a survey of what people support based on what is coming forward.
Yes, council can do that now. You can always do that, but if you wanted to include that in an ordinance or the charter or something along those lines, we could work that into a policy that gets adopted.
Okay, I think I would like to explore that avenue. I think from the conversations I've had with my constituents, people see the benefit of TIFs, but they're very concerned about how they're created and who they're benefiting. And if it really is a holistic community lift.
Councilmember No Fire?
So I've been thinking about this one a lot, and it seems like we already have a mechanism in place with the referendum petition. And so my question is, my statement is, I think we have a problem with that. And the question I have is, can we reword it? Because I've been led to believe that that is a city thing as far as the way ours is conducted. Can we restructure it to where it's more like a state question where they work the gist out with the opposition, get that signed off, and then send it before a vote of the people?
What we follow is the process set out in state statute. We do have some initiative and referendum procedures in our charter and in Title 11, which applies specifically to cities and towns, but there have been recent cases where the Supreme Court has said you need to follow the process in state law, and so we're very careful to follow that to the T to make sure that there's not a process issue from the city's perspective. So that's what we've been following because of that guidance from the Supreme Court. And I should say, in that process, the petitioners propose the gist. The city attorney weighs in on the ballot title. They also propose a ballot title, and the city attorney can weigh in and change the ballot title or accept the ballot title as is. But we do not typically review the petition and review the gist for sufficiency, just based on that state law process.
Be that. I was just trying to get rid of that problem before it actually happens and before we go to all the work of gathering signatures.
Yeah.
And so to require, is there anything in state law about requiring the council have a supermajority support to do it to?
No, I think that's a policy decision that council could make.
That wouldn't require a charter amendment or does?
We could do an ordinance, and that might be better with a new procedure to just kind of see how it works. And that way, if you want to add some things or change some things, you could do that more easily.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so under current state law, you would say that there's not a way for us to require a public vote on TIFs, even by a charter amendment?
I think a charter amendment could make maybe a stronger case for it, but the election board follows their election board statutes, and those statutes have been interpreted to say you can only have elections for purposes set out in state law. So I think that's a wrinkle we just need to explore maybe further. They run our elections for us. We have certainly have examples where they have done things that aren't authorized by state law, the North Base, the sewer solution. I think we voted 2 or 3 times. 3rd time's a charm on that one. And those were advisory, the subsequent 2. So there are cases going years back where that has happened, but there's an AG's opinion out there, as I recall, that seems to suggest that we can't do that.
Okay, so potential policy requires a supermajority of council and exploring other options that state law would allow. Okay. Anything else on this one? For any other? With the pay one, would that be one that goes into effect
That
the
would
next
be
term?
next
or
term, yeah.
Immediately? Or what?
It depends on how you want to approach it. I would say when the Charter Review Commission looked at that, they wanted to be careful to not have the public think that you guys were sending forward your own raise. And so it began with the next cycle of elections.
Maybe one way to consider would be the next. So if it were to, say, an amendment were to pass in February, it would not take effect this coming budget, but what about saying it takes effect the next budget?
So July 1, 2027? Yeah, I mean, we could try that. There's nothing illegal
Some of us
about.
may still be on council, but it would
Right.
have been over a year and have time to work it into the budget process and all that. So-
Yeah, it's not necessarily a legal issue, but I remember the Charter Commission being concerned about
Yeah,
the
sure.
perceptions.
Can we see when these other cities raised theirs? How long did they wait to implement it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know Lawton, it just went into effect July 1st, and I think it was voted on last December. But I don't know, I'd have to go back and pull the ordinance for Edmond to see how long between the election and the implementation was.
Councilmember Gray.
And I was just curious, if we do these charter amendments and some of them pass, or all of them pass, is there a waiting period where the AG has to approve what we've done?
Yeah, and that's the other piece, and sometimes that's not very fast. How long did we wait this last time? It was,
7 or 8 months. I mean, the governor's the one that has to approve it, but he sends it to the AG's office for their review, and then by the time it comes back, and, I mean, I've seen it as quickly as 90 days, but I've also seen it as long as almost a year. So until you have his certification, you can't implement any of the things that went to the voters.
Councilmember
To
Peter.
that point, that election is in November and they wouldn't be sworn in until February 27. New AG,
they'd get sworn in January.
January, okay. So, but still, we're talking a year and a half down the road from now,
Yeah,
assuming that the current AG doesn't rule on it and it passes the buck to whoever comes in after him. Just something to consider. Like, even though our timeline might be budget of 27,
Yeah. Councilmember Dixon.
I'm just gonna ask, we're not planning on using the, Charter Review Commission.
No, I don't, unless council really wants to reconvene it. It's only required every 10 years. I think it's probably good to review it more than once every 10 years, but we did just do it 3 years ago. And so unless we want to take a whole look at the entire charter again, which, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but if it's just these four, then I don't think we need to. But if there's a desire from council to
No, I mean,
have them relook at the whole charter again.
no, I was just curious. They've obviously pretty much all already gone through the Charter Review Commission, so I just had to ask that.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm open to that if that's constituent feedback or what you all think. But yeah, my plan right now would not be to reconvene that committee currently. Are there, okay, so TIFs, auditor requirements, swearing in times, and council pay. Were there any others? Anybody else had on your mind about it? Okay, and then did you have anything about I know we're gonna talk about, it relates to the next item too, but the election dates. And so, February or April is what we're looking at.
February would require to be first reading in your next meeting in November. So it's all about education. I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of time for
Which is a
public
month
education.
from now.
Yeah.
So we have, so I guess the question would be whether we can finalize what we want them to say and everything if we want to get them on the February ballot.
April buys you a little more time, first and second reading in January, but
And if we have, say we have 3 or maybe 4 potential charter amendments and the street maintenance bond and potential runoff elections in April, so I don't think either one of them is bad, but, you know, like I said before, we've heard from constituents wanting to try to combine things when we can if possible, but it just doesn't always work out that way as far as things being ready to go by the time we have to submit to the election board, so. Councilmember Grant, if you go.
I would just voice support for April. I'd like to have everything cemented in a good public education or civic IQ about what these are and why we need them, and then let it go to the polls.
Yeah, similar, and the question was gonna be that November meeting is the fourth Tuesday, right? Or second Tuesday is canceled?
Yes.
The holiday, okay, just checking, so.
November
Yeah.
25th.
Right, so we do not have a meeting in 2 weeks, or on the 11th. We only have one council meeting in December or in November and one in December. So, okay, any other thoughts on April, February, any other charter amendments, anything like that? Yeah, I think a month, it could be a challenge to get it all settled out and hashed out wording wise and get some more research on pay and where they've implemented it and how. So is there any objection to April for charter amendments? And we can go forward as though that's what'll happen. That could tie into the petition initiative for the entertainment district if the Supreme Court allows it to go forward. From what I understand, that vote could only happen on a citywide election.
yes.
And so it can't, February city council elections would not qualify because they're not citywide, right?
It's almost.
Right. Yeah, six elections, so, but April with charter amendments and a street maintenance bond, it would be a citywide election, so that might work out that way, who knows how long they're gonna take still, so. Okay, any other comments or questions about the charter amendments part, or anything anybody wants to add? Okay, all right, thank you, Catherine. And then item number 2 is a discussion regarding street maintenance bond election in spring of 2026.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Scott Sturts, Director of Public Works. I have Joe Hill, our Streets Program Manager, here with me tonight. We're here. We're excited to be talking about our street maintenance bond program. We've made it another 5 years. It's time to be looking at another 5 years. We presented at CPTC, and we're happy to come here in front of full council. And tonight we have some more information. We'll be showing you the map of locations where we want to be working, and a lot of information tonight, and looking forward to getting moving forward with this program. So just for everybody, for people who may be viewing, a little bit of background on our street maintenance program. It's been a very successful program. It started in 2005. It's a 5-year bond, and that bond is for that 5-year program, so as it continue on. It's been a very successful program. It's been going on for 20 years. We've had 4 full cycles of it. We're looking forward to a 5th. The main thing with this is that we're trying to maintain what we have. We're not trying to build new roads. And we do a lot of focuses on those areas, those local roads, those roads that rarely get touched with the big bond programs. So your local roads, your neighborhood roads, some of those smaller areas, rural roads. And we really go out, and that's our main goal here, but we base this a lot on our what we call our PCI, which is Pavement Condition Index. And just to give you a little bit of background on that, I'm not going to go into a long deal. It's a whole black box of its own that we could talk for days about. But essentially what happens is we have a company that comes in. They come in every year. They do 20% of our roads a year. So in 5 years, we get a full assessment of all the roads in Norman. And this takes in a lot of a different, the sub-base, the rideability, the condition, is it cracking? And then they give it a score from 1 to 100, just like school grades. 100 is perfect, basically brand new. Once you get down around that 60, 50, you're failing and you're needing to really do something to address those roadways. So we use that information to really pick what roads we work on. And so you're gonna hear us talk about this PCI a lot throughout this. Currently, we're at a PCI of around 77. That's better than our surrounding communities. Nationwide, from what we hear from our vendors, is about 60 to 65 is your average PCI. So considerably higher than that. When we started this program in 2005, we were in the 60 to 65 range. So we've been able to make a lot of improvements across our roadways and do a lot of good with that work. We have a quick table here that just kind of shows you those program years, that 2005 to 2009, that initial year, around $11 million, 54% voter approval. So it was pretty tight. I think people weren't very sure about it. And then in 2010, 2015, that bond amount, same tax millage, so we didn't increase the tax on this. It's just the growth in property taxes allowed that number to go up. Went up to an approval rate of almost 65%. And you can see that it continued to grow in 16 and again in 21 up to $27 million. And we wound up with about a 67% approval rating. So it's done very well. We've been able to get good success with this, and we feel like we've got the community's backing and approval on this. So when we talk about our street maintenance bond program, what are we really talking about? Basically, we make sure that every ward gets touched. So you're going to see, when you see the map up here in a few minutes, every ward's going to get some work done in their area. It's a balanced program. We look at this kind of like when we talk about our sidewalk program every year, where we have different categories so that we can split that money up and make sure we're hitting all of the areas we need to. Just want to remind you, we do have about 800 miles of roadway in Norman, so there's a lot to get to. But we break it down. We have our urban asphalt, rural asphalt, urban concrete, urban reconstruct, and then preventative maintenance, which we added in this last cycle. This is something that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes, but basically it allows us to get those newer streets and get them before they start failing. So it's kind of like, if you floss your teeth every day, you don't wind up with cavities as bad. It's kind of that type of a thought process here. You can kind of see pictures of those as you look around there. You can see up there in the upper left, the urban asphalt, just a typical asphalt street that we see. That pressure paved, that's one of the examples of what we're doing with preventative maintenance. It's also crack sealing. We've got some other techniques that we're starting to use that we're seeing a lot of success with. The urban concretes, all those concrete streets that normally you see that are falling apart, fixing those. The urban reconstruct, those are the roads that are just beyond repair. We've just got to start over. And then, of course, the rural asphalt, which are all the rural far west Norman and far east Norman. When we do this bond, we actually have a list of every street we're going to do, and we have to do all of those streets. we can change that list. We can come to council and we can add to that. And we do that as we see that there's funding left over. We've got some proposals we'd like to bring back. So if there's funding left, we can come back and say, we'd like to go do these streets in addition, and council can add those to the list. Again, I think we've shown we've got documented results. We've successfully completed every roadway that we've said we were going to work on in every bond program in the street maintenance bond. So just a little bit more information here. So the pavement management program data is where they take that PCI numbers, and it's all in a list. We can go in there and we can tell you block by block what it looks like, what it needs, and how we can work on it. And that helps us really get a strategy to how we want to address these, whether it's a preventative maintenance, whether it's a go in and mill off the 2 inches of asphalt and put new asphalt on top just to get it dressed up and resealed, or if it is that full reconstruct. It also helps us with our pavement types. But I kind of want to look at this chart. Is kind of busy, and I just don't really want to spend a lot of time with it. But this is kind of looking at the pavement condition with that PCI there on the vertical axis versus the relative age in years. And you can see that that green circle, that's kind of where the new pavement falls. And as it gets a little older, it kind of starts to drop. And that's kind of where you start seeing where you really like to get it. Then that average range down there where it goes to pink. And you can see that we're in the middle of that pink with our current pavement condition, which is a good place to be. We'd like to get it higher, and we'll continue to try to do so. And then once you get down around that 55, it starts to fail. The other thing that's interesting is if you look at these same circles, the green circle is where you can really get a lot out of doing preventative maintenance. You're taking something before it started having a lot of problems and you're making it better. The blue is kind of where the maintenance, the urban and the rural asphalt and the urban concrete, we can go in there and we can get them while they're starting to get bad and make them better. And then when you start getting down to the bottom of that pink range, that's when we've got to reconstruct them. They're just falling apart. So just to kind of give you an idea that it all kind of, with age, just like you expect, it all gets worse. This is not necessarily that we fix the worst roads first, because it may be that obviously the reconstructs are always the worst. Those are the worst numbers. But we don't have enough money to go out and just do all reconstructs. We need to be taking care of the other stuff, or those would fall behind and fall into that category quicker. So we look at it, how can we best utilize our funds to best address the most number of streets we can get in a program. Every year, or every time we come around to this cycle, staff goes out and looks at every one of these streets we're proposing to make sure that they actually are what they say they are in the PCI and the pavement management data. Because we don't want to go out there and go, why are we touching this road? It really looks really good. So we do that. We also consider, are there going to be other infrastructure projects? Is there a water line that needs to be done? We don't want to get in there a year before they need to do a water line project that they have scheduled, because then we're tearing up a road that's just been fixed. Or we can schedule and work with them if they're doing a sewer line. We can come in right after them, and then we can take care of a lot of the pavement repair and make sure the pavement looks really good. So we do try to do a lot of coordination. We also coordinate with the stormwater projects. And then other infrastructure improvements we'll talk about on the next slide, but some ADA, some storm sewer that we can do when we can. And obviously we only have so much money that we can expend. So like everything, we have budget constraints we have to address. So for the 26 to 31 bond program, working with our finance department, we're estimating that based upon the property tax and where we are now, it could be $35 million in maintenance activities. So that's the number we're kind of shooting for. It's a great number. That's a lot to do. It's no new tax. We're just asking to continue what we get today and continue to do the work that we do today with the same funding. We try, this is kind of the mix of how we take those 5 programs. We don't always hit these numbers exact. This is that goal. 25% of the funding to asphalt rehabilitation and maintenance, 25% to concrete rehabilitation and maintenance, 15% to rural road rehabilitation and maintenance, 20% to reconstructions, and 15% to preventative maintenance. We do, when we're out there, if there's something that needs to be addressed for bicycle safety, if there's a grate that's going the wrong way, you can stick a bicycle wheel in it and wipe out. We fix those. Or if there's something there, if there's an ADA ramp that we're adjacent to that needs to be repaired, we fix that while it's there. That's not necessarily required as with federal funds, but we do like to do that here too, so that we can be addressing as much of the needs of the community as we can. And then if we need to, we do minor drainage improvements. We may work with some extensions for water and sewer. Some valley gutter work may come into this, a culvert or pipe crossing on our rural roadways. And then when we're out there, when we're in the rural roadways, we always try to get those roadside ditches and get those where they're flowing properly, get them graded out, and then that way they can be maintained easier by city staff or by the public that's adjacent to those. I'm going to turn it over to Joe to give you the more of the details and the nuts and bolts of the program as they've got it laid out.
All right. So as Scott said, we're asking for 35 million right now, estimated 35 million. When we did talk to finance, that number could potentially go up a little bit with the existing millage that we have. But as you can see from this chart, it's a good comparison year over or program over program cycle. And we believe this is really representative of kind of the work we've been able to complete, especially the 21 to 26 program. As we're wrapping that up, and as we were thinking about this 26 to 31 program, how much work can you really do in a year? When you're all over town, you know, we hear it all the time. We're the orange cone people. So we think this is really representative of a good, healthy program that is improving pavement, making strides, but also reasonable in the amount of work that we're putting throughout the city. This is also a very good example of your cost increases, seeing where those have taken place. That asphalt and concrete are definitely, concrete is quite impactful, the cost that we've seen over the last several years. But totaling roughly 180 miles or 180 lane miles is what we've got for you guys right now. And then let's see if I can get this to work.
And Scott,
Okay.
so
Yes, sir.
each program, is there about 5 projects a year?
I would say we
Over
exceed that.
5 each, so about 25 projects or so each
No, we
program?
exceed that in most of them, especially with preventative maintenance. We can get a lot in a year. And they move very fast through the project. I would say that reconstructs is probably just under a mile, maybe 2 miles on average.
Yes.
But if you look at the asphalt and concrete, we're probably exceeding 5 miles. It's just they're spread out and, you know, sometimes they're small pieces, so it may be a lot of little projects. But, you know, you figure if you're looking at 180 lane miles, let's say if those are all 2-lane roads, you're looking at 90 miles. So, you know, you're getting up there to 20 miles a year, but it seems off.
Like a rough estimate of how many projects you think we've done
We
since 2000?
put out 5 contracts per
Yeah.
year. So essentially each category has its own contract. The last 2 years, we have actually split the urban concrete into 2 separate contracts because it was over $2 million a year in concrete work. So, in fact, I can't remember I think it's on the next meeting, or no, we just awarded this year's cycle for a contractor that has 2 separate contracts for all of that. Gosh, off the top, I couldn't tell you how many locations. Sometimes it's
Several hundred.
15,
Yeah.
sometimes it's 20.
And out of our 800 miles, I mean, you got it listed on there per mile, but I mean, we've touched 600 or 700 miles probably in the last 20 years.
So we talked in the last meeting a little bit, just some of that pavement management data. You know, we've got nearly 800 miles of roads, and we talked about backlog. I know not everybody was there, but we had a good crowd for CP&T that night. Our backlog is only at 2.2%. So of that 800 miles of roadway, only 2.2% is really in that concerning reconstruct category. Everything else is in a general maintenance category, if you will. Speaking with some of our different consultants, that average for most municipalities our size is probably going to be 10 to 12%. So we're doing really well there. But yes, the list is long. I just got a draft of the ordinance this afternoon. It's going to be a long one. And the original presentation that we pulled up, just as an example from the 2021 board, was, I want to say, over 41 slides. and over 30 of them were just lists of roads. So that leads us to this, which is we just wanted to kind of give you guys a brief overview. It's a little bit harder with a laptop. To zoom in and out here, but this will give you kind of your citywide look at the program. So this is a program mapped out citywide. You've got your 5 different categories here. Green is gonna be concrete. Your blue is your urban asphalt. Light blue is gonna be reconstruction. The tannish gold color there is the preventative maintenance, and the red is the rural section asphalt. You'll notice, so on the preventative maintenance especially, we really tried to cluster. This last cycle with preventative maintenance, as we were going through these neighborhoods, we realized we were doing 95% of a neighborhood, and then 1 or 2 of the roads maybe got left off, 1 or 2 cul-de-sacs, whatever the case may be. We were a little bit more thoughtful about it this time. Preventative maintenance is a low-cost, pretty high benefit program between the crack sealing and the pavement sealing to just extend the life and try and get as much longevity out of that road as we can. So we tried to cluster those a little bit more just to avoid some of the headaches we ran into this last cycle. But this map, huge shout out to our GIS and planning group for turning this around for us so quick. They got this after, like a week after our CP&T, so they put this together quickly.
And as we move forward, we will have this, it's a GIS, so you'll be able to go online and pull it up, and you'll be able to click on it, find out exactly what the street section is. So people will be able to go on, and we'll have that live as soon as we get direction from council.
So we're working to finalize this. This is an example of what residents will see once we get it uploaded to the website. You'll have the location, what program it's a part of, what ward it is, and then we will also have the estimated construction year that we plan to implement that project. We are still tweaking numbers and making sure that we've got our T's crossed here.
Councilor Peacock.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to the question, but I just want to ask on the record. Nothing we see on the screen right now is a road widening, correct?
That's correct. This would be,
I see 24, it looks like 24, 36, 48, potentially none of those are widenings or anything. Okay.
no, the maintenance bond is literally just to maintain what we have today.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to ask.
Councilor Grant.
I was curious about the reconstructions. I noticed, I guess if we go to the slide where it's got the miles that we're doing, it was like 5 lane miles for urban reconstruction, 7 million.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious, looks like the last time we did nearly as many was 2010, 2015 program cycle. Is this just kind of like where we're at with these roads, like a cluster of them are really old and just need to be completely replaced?
So again, budget optimization, the idea that you spread your money out and try to maintain what you have, keep it in good shape. So if it's in good shape, let's get it sealed, let's get it crack sealed. Or if it's in decent shape, let's get a mill and overlay or a concrete panel replacement project on it. So we kind of pick the worst of the worst for the reconstructs. Now, we don't have, you've driven around town. You guys all drive to our city limits. It's very easy to tell our pavement condition versus everybody else. Go up 36 to Telephone Road, you notice the moment you cross it, or any other of our border roads.
I was just
So-
kind of curious if it was just aging out, kind of like a bunch of them are old together.
I think that is, that if you look on the map, they were spread out, so it wasn't like a small cluster. It's just some small areas in this case where we're finally we feel like we've just kind of pushed those as far as we can, and we feel like we need to catch up in that right now.
Could we go to that map?
And we also try to spread them out. So that's the other thing is, I think I get the question, right? If you think about it, you have a neighborhood that was built in the 20s and you're reconstructing one or two roads in that neighborhood. Why not reconstruct all of them? Because they're all of similar age. They're not necessarily in the same condition, but also, if we're in the same neighborhood in that small pocket, we're really not providing a good citywide impact for our infrastructure.
Yeah, I saw one in Ward 8, and I knew there were a cluster in Ward 4, and I see them in Ward 7 and Ward 1.
Yeah, Ward 1, and those are the older roadways. That's not much of a shock. But yeah, as we look, wow, that went really fast.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And the one that is in Ward 8 is a road that we stopped the preventive maintenance just south of it. We've had calls from a specific property owner. We went out and that road is, we don't know why, but that road is in worse shape than everything else in the neighborhood. There are literally, you can tell where the trash trucks pull up because it's just failing. And the whole roadway, it's a cul-de-sac. And really, there's no way to just patch that one. It's time to fix that road completely. It really is a disservice to that neighborhood in that area. So that one's a really odd outlier, that it's alone in an area that nothing else in the area looks that bad. So that's the one in Ward 8. The others you can see are pretty much clustered and are more,
That's why I was asking.
Core
'cause I
Norman.
was like, oh, I know that we're the oldest infrastructure, so I expected that, but then I was like, oh, some of them.
Oh, there's some interesting outliers out there.
The
Trust me.
brown, I mean, it all looks like neighborhoods that were built in the early 90s and 2000s that are now needing maintenance.
and that's the preventative maintenance program. And that's really, we're probably a little late on where we want to be. That preventive maintenance should probably be earlier than we are. But they're in good enough shape that we think the preventative maintenance, we can add to the life cycle and keep them still at a high PCI, that pavement condition index, without going into more extensive work, and that this will give us some more years and some more time that we can have those roadways before we have to go out and consider further maintenance activities.
Worth noting that every time we approve a new neighborhood development, a new section of a neighborhood, we are committing to take over maintenance of the infrastructure in that neighborhood forever. Thankfully, we have this program to help us do it. A lot of cities don't. Like we've talked about Edmond before, they're trying to get a street maintenance bond passed by their voters so they can kind of follow our example of how to deal with all the maintenance that we've taken responsibility for all these decades. So
And the bond that just passed in Oklahoma City, there's a large portion that's kind of doing this too.
so the blue, is that repaving you're saying?
The blue is,
So the darker
Concrete
blue is going
Dark
to
blue.
be asphalt.
Repaving.
Yes,
The-
Oak
asphalt,
Mill and-
asphalt
Mill and
and
overlay.
overlays.
Okay, so that section that's Gray Street from University to Norman High School?
Yep.
The part that's not being touched or improved through our two-way project. When we repave that, would we repave it to match the rest of Gray Street as a one lane in each direction with a center turn lane?
that's basically,
Right now, it's two lanes going west and one going east.
we would
with no-
consider that. We'd probably have that discussion with our traffic division when we get to that point. But that would probably be the ultimate goal through
I
that
would
section.
like to recommend that we do that and make it
Yeah.
match up. Especially if people are gonna be turning left, I guess. 'Cause I guess they already can turn left at University, but
Yeah.
have that dedicated left turn lane. It would look more uniform, I guess. Councilor Peacock?
I just wanted to clarify, if a neighborhood is gated and the roads are private, we're not on the hook for those roads.
That's correct.
Okay.
We have a lot of private roads in Norman, isn't there?
I keep asking Joe, he won't touch my road.
Sorry, buddy.
Okay, so in
Any other questions on the
CPTC,
map?
we had staff put this together just so we could discuss it in case we did want to put it on a February ballot.
I've got that chart here again too.
So I think they'd be prepared to do that, but,
So effectively to do that, as we were saying, we'd have to be on the November meeting. So basically, we would have to have the agenda item being put together within the next week to be on for that November meeting. So it would be tight. I can tell you that our preference would be to have that little bit more time to go out, and because we know we're gonna be asked to come to every Rotary Club and PTA, and many of you will ask us to come speak at ward meetings or a meeting in your ward. That time to be able to put that together, we had always anticipated an April vote. We would have been here, 3 months, 4 months earlier. I'll take the fall for that one. But certainly, if it was council's decision to do this in February, we would make that happen, and we could absolutely make that occur.
Councilor Grant?
I'm comfortable with April because we were talking about charter amendments, this, and potentially a runoff. And I feel that is plenty for a ballot, so.
Any other comments on a date, February, April, any preference from anybody?
Just defer to staff on that one. I mean, if you guys prefer April, and you don't think the other items that we just talked about putting on April would jeopardize this, I'll support that.
I think that'd be a discussion, a wider discussion amongst staff if they felt that that was an issue.
I'll reaffirm my commitment to defer to staff on that one.
I think, again, it does have to be renewed by May.
That's correct.
Otherwise, it would go away, and then we lose that rate or that base that we've had since 2005. And so the no tax increase, successful program, and I think being able to explain to voters about, or not necessarily explain, but have as much information about, we've touched almost 600 miles of streets in Norman in the last 20 years. We're 15 points higher than the national average or whatever in CPI.
PCI.
And college playoff index.
And I was looking at that number, looked like it's just a little bit under 600 lane miles.
That's what I
Figure they're all 2 lane miles. You're probably 300 miles touched with this program in 20 years.
But not widening maintenance of existing streets that we've already built and taken over responsibility for. So I think with charter amendments, and I'm okay with either date, but April seems like would give staff enough time to get everything prepared properly. Would give us some time with the charter amendments to hash that out still. Councilor Grant?
I definitely want the time to have civic IQ. And I was just curious, historically, have you ever surveyed to kind of get a feel for where people are at and their support for another street maintenance bond, or?
I know that there was a survey done, and it was prior to me coming on staff here. But that did show that maintenance was something that was of a high priority on the street quality. We haven't done a real in-depth since that timeframe, but we've just been looking at the voter approval rate on this item and how it's been very well received by our citizens and our voters.
Thank you.
All right, any final comment about it? Councilor Hinkle?
Berry Road's gonna get worked on for sure, because Norman's just not Norman if Berry Road's not getting worked on.
We'll just go out there and
Piece
work
of
on it
Berry Road.
anyways.
Throw some cones out.
We can go out there and throw some cones up
Oh,
and
wait,
just,
well, I mean, Imhoff and Berry's closed this today for work.
yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be working on it at some point, whether it's in the program or not.
Okay.
I'll send y'all my word too, constituents.
It looks like we will proceed with a April election for charter amendments and bond proposition for renewal of street maintenance bond. We'll finalize the charter amendments at some point in the near